In this video, we're going to be talking about the best leather football boots currently on the market and which one you should go for depending on your budget. Because while synthetic boots are becoming more popular, a lot of players, including myself, appreciate the feel and the durability that you get from a leather football boot. So we're going to start by talking about the more affordable models and then gradually talk about more expensive boots as the video goes on. And if you're interested in picking up a pair of any of the boots that we discuss, you can find links to them on sale with discount codes in the description. Now let's get into the best leather football boots currently on the market. And to kick things off, we're going to start with a boot that I reviewed recently in the Copa Piure 2.3. Now, since Adidas has recently rebranded this model as the Copa Piure League, just know you might also see this boot appear under that name as well. But at just $70, it's going to be one of the cheapest leather football boots you can get on the entire market. Now, keep in mind the upper on the Copa Piure 2.3 is going to be a hybrid, which means it's a combination of both synthetic materials and calf leather. And since it is a third tier takedown, it's not going to be quite as slim as the premium Copa Piure 2.1. Instead, it is going to feel a little bit more chunky and bulky. But at less than 1/3 of the price of the premium version, those are definitely trade-offs that I'm willing to make. In fact, I've included the Copa Piure 2.3 on this list instead of the Copa Piure 2.1 because in my opinion, it's just much better value and it's almost as good of a football boot. With the Copa Piure 2.3, you're still going to get a comfortable fit, great lockdown, and honestly, a pretty enjoyable playing experience. Not to mention, you're going to get the same really aggressive sole plate that comes in the more premium version. So if your budget absolutely tops out at that $70 price point, the Copa Piure 2.3 is going to be the way to go. However, if you're willing to spend just about $20 more, you can pick up a pair of our next boot, which is going to be the Adidas Copa Gloro. Now you can find the Copa Gloro for around $90, which also makes this a really appealing value play, seeing as that you're going to be getting pretty much a full calf leather upper around this entire boot. You also have a variety of colorways to choose from. I have it in this white and lime green accent, which I really like, and it has this retro design that I appreciate as well, with this fold over tongue that makes me think of boots from the early 2000s. And in terms of fit and feel, the Gloro here is also going to give you a little bit more width and volume on the inside of the boot, and since the upper is a bit thinner than the Copa Piure 2.3, you're going to have some more sensitivity as well. Another thing I really appreciate about the Copa Gloro is that the sole plate is going to have all conical studs here, which means it's going to be great to perform not just on firm ground natural grass, but also on artificial grass. Just based on the quality of these boots alone, I'm honestly surprised that Adidas isn't trying to sell them for more money. I think $90 is a really fair price point. The Gloro is definitely a boot that can rival some more expensive offerings from Adidas that are in the $150 to $200 price range. And if you do like the retro design, this is definitely going to be one to consider. And then next on our list, coming in just over that $100 price point, we have the Nike Premier 3. Now, a couple years ago, you could find the Nike Premier 3 retailing for exactly $100, but recently the price has gone up to around $119. But depending on the colorway that you go for, you may be able to find it on sale. Now, in my opinion, around that $100 price point, the Nike Premier 3 is still going to be the gold standard. This boot just has so many different things going for it. It's the first boot on our list that's going to have a full kangaroo leather upper, and that upper is just so soft. It's also going to have a really comfortable fit that should accommodate most foot shapes, and honestly, among Nike's entire lineup, this is probably going to be the widest fitting boot that they have. You're going to get great lockdown from the lacing system, and then similar to the Copa Gloro, you're going to have a sole plate here that consists mainly of just conical studs that's going to be great on firm ground and artificial grass. And aesthetically, I'm just a huge fan of the Nike Premier series. I even had a pair of the Nike Premier 2s when they came out a few years ago. Another thing I really like about this model is that you can get it in a wide variety of colors, and Nike is constantly coming out with new variations. This is the platinum colorway that has these really nice gold accents on the back that I'm a huge fan of. And I would say literally the only thing that stops this boot from being not quite as good as some of the more expensive models on this list is maybe just the durability side of things, because some parts of the leather and the stitching on this boot is prone to cracking, as you can see here near the base of the upper. But that being said, these boots are still really fun to play in, and I still got at least 2 solid seasons out of them. Now, I do want to just mention that Nike is planning on eventually transitioning the Nike Premier line to a full synthetic, so if you're interested in picking up a pair of kangaroo leather Premier 3s, I would recommend getting them as soon as possible. Then with the next boot in our list, we're going over to New Balance with the 442 V2 Pro. Now you can pick up the 442s for around $130 full retail price, but you can often find them on sale as well. And the thing that really separates the 442s from some of the first few boots that we talked about is just how insanely light and modern these are. I mean, pound for pound, these are about the same weight as the Nike Vapor 15s. And that's pretty crazy considering the fact that these look like they could just be traditional leather football boots. Now, most of those weight savings are going to come primarily from the thin kangaroo leather upper, as well as the really light and responsive sole plate. But the most important thing to note about the 442s is that these are going to be the best option for players with wide feet. Because although the 442s come in both standard and wide variations, even the standard model is going to be wider than most of the other boots we discuss. So if you're a player that really struggles to find boots that can accommodate them, especially throughout the toe box, I would definitely recommend checking out the 442s. They took a little bit of break-in time near the heel area, but other than that, extremely comfortable football boots. And next up, we got a pair of boots that you may not have seen before, and these are the Adler Horenzos. These come in from a smaller company out of Japan, and they retail for about $150. And while that may seem like a decent amount of money for boots that you might not be familiar with, these are some of the highest quality boots that I've ever tried on. And not only that, they're also some of the most unique boots I've ever tried on as well. Usually when I pick up a pair of leather boots, I expect the material to be pretty thick and plush because that's what I traditionally come to expect. However, the leather on the Horenzos is razor thin throughout the entire football boot. So when you dribble, juggle, or shoot the ball wearing these boots, it literally almost feels as if you're barefoot. And while I think the design of these boots may be an acquired taste, I am just a huge fan of how the upper looks on these, and the stitching is just so well done and so meticulous throughout the entire upper. And there's also small things that Adler gets right with this boot that I really appreciate as well. For example, the sole plate is really flexible, especially throughout the midfoot, which is a feature I appreciate. There's also a lot of volume throughout the toe box, so it's good for accommodating wide feet as well. And even the laces feel really premium and high quality. And all of the features I just mentioned just go towards making these boots perform great on the field. And that's why currently these are my favorite boots to play in. One important thing I will note with regards to sizing is that these do run very long, so I would recommend sizing about a full size down if you plan on picking up a pair. Next up, we got an all-time classic. It is the Copa Mundial from Adidas. Now, there was no way I could make a list of the best leather football boots of the year without mentioning the Copa Mundial. It's one of the oldest mass-produced football boots of all time, dating back over 50 years. And in those 50 years, not much has changed, but honestly, there's a really good reason for that. And that's because these boots were just great to begin with. They're one of the few models Adidas has that's still made in Germany, and the kangaroo leather upper on these is just so soft. And of all the boots I've worn over the past few years, I've probably worn these through some of the worst conditions, and they've held up surprisingly well. Despite playing with these for multiple seasons in the mud and the rain, there's still almost no sole separation at the front of these boots, which is really impressive. And the leather is still just as soft as the day I bought them, if not a little bit softer. So if you're someone who just likes to buy a pair of boots, set it, and forget it, this is definitely going to be one to consider. Because more than almost any other boot on this list, these boots really just stretch to the shape of your foot over time, so how they feel the first month is going to be a little bit different to the second month and the third month after that. They really kind of become your own after the first few months. If I were to mention any gripe about the Copa Mundials, it would be that they don't have removable insoles if you wanted to remove them after wearing down. And I do think they happen to be a little bit overpriced at this point, as Adidas is now listing them for around $180. But if you happen to find them on sale, the Copa Mundial is still an iconic boot and you won't regret picking them up. And we're starting to get close to the end of our list here, with the next boot being the Mizuno Morelia Neo 4 Beta. Now, the elite version of this boot is going to run you around $200, while the made in Japan version is going to be closer to $320. But having seen both boots, other than the location that they're manufactured, they are so similar, so I would definitely recommend picking up the elite version. Because the elite version is the one I have right here, and the quality on these boots is honestly astounding. I'd say that the only other boot that rivals this model in terms of build quality on this list is probably the Adlers. And just to give you some perspective, I picked up these boots for $160 on sale, and even then, I feel like they're underpriced. Just because I've seen $300 pairs of football boots that don't feel as nice as these. With the Neo 4 Beta, you're going to have a really thin synthetic along the sides of the upper here that are going to give you a close touch on the ball, and then that synthetic is going to transition to a soft kangaroo leather toe toe box. And then directly underneath the lacing system, you're gonna have a really soft, elasticated knit material that's gonna provide you not just great comfort, but also amazing lockdown. And what makes these boots just feel really premium is that where the elasticated knit meets the synthetic and the synthetic meets the leather, all of these points of connectivity just feel so well stitched together, and the boot just feels so seamless despite having these different materials. And then if you're a fan of really snappy and responsive sole plates, you're gonna have one of the most aggressive and really stiff sole plates in the Neo 4 Beta here. It's essentially a speed boot with kangaroo leather in the toe box, and it's a great alternative for those looking at the Vapor 15 from Nike or the Crazy Fast from Adidas. Because in my opinion, the build quality and comfort on these is going to be better than both of those two models. Now the Neo 4 Beta is an amazing and modern football boot, but if you're looking for something a little bit more traditional from Mizuno, I would go with the last boot on our list, and that's the classic Mizuno Melia 2. Now similar to the Neo 4 Beta, you can get the Mizuno Melia 2 in both the Elite version and a Made in Japan version. The Elite version that I have here is going to run you closer to 160, while the Made in Japan version is going to be closer to 280. Now some will say the Made in Japan version is going to have slightly softer leather throughout the upper, but for me, the Elite version was perfect. Now for me, what makes this boot so good is just that it's so simple, and it executes on the basic things so well while not trying to do too much. And if you are picking up the Elite version, it's such a fair price for the quality that you're getting here. As I mentioned in a previous video, the Morelia 2 feels like a slightly more premium version of the Nike Premier 3, almost like the next level up. As in, it has a similar design aesthetic, but it just has slightly better materials and build quality. And that means it's also going to have better durability over time. And similar to other boots I mentioned on this list, the sole plate on the Morelia 2 is also going to feature all conical studs, which makes it great for both firm ground and artificial grass, which I play on most of the time. And the Morelia 2 is just going to deliver exactly what you want from a traditional leather football boot. It's going to give you such a soft, natural, and pillowy touch on the ball with all of that kangaroo leather in the toe box. And on top of that, the lacing system is going to give you more than enough lockdown for your performance on the field. And while they're not necessarily as wide as the 442s from New Balance, for most players, they're going to offer more than enough width in the toe box, and it'll stretch out a little bit over time. So that is going to do it for our list, but as an added bonus, I'm just going to do some awards for some of my absolute favorites out of the boots that we just discussed. So while every boot that we just discussed was great value at its own price, my best overall budget pick is gonna be the Nike Premier 3. I just think around that $100 price point, it offers such good value. It has everything that you're gonna look for, from comfort to fit to performance to aesthetics, and I still think it's one of the best boots that Nike offers. Then while most of the boots on this list are also going to be pretty accommodating for wide feet compared to the average football boot, I would say if you are a player that is specifically looking for a model with a wider fit, I would go for the 442s from New Balance. And then for best overall, I had to go with a tie between two different models with the Adler Henzo and the Mizuno Melia 2. Just because both of these boots are amazing, but they offer a slightly different playing experience. If you want a thin, barefoot feel on the ball with tons of sensitivity, I would go with the Adler Henzos. However, if you want a soft, pillowy feel from your boots that's a little bit more traditional, I would go with the Mizuno Melia 2s. I actually did a full comparison video on these boots, and I'll leave that in the description if you're interested. And that is going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.